Ladies and gentlemen, there is a power within you greater than any circumstance, any obstacle, any doubt. It lies dormant, waiting, not for permission, but for a command, and today I give you the words to awaken it. For the next 3 days, I challenge you to speak this aloud, morning and night, as if your very life depends on it, because in many ways it does. What you say to yourself becomes the architecture of your reality. Every word you speak, especially the ones said in the privacy of your own mind, serves as a blueprint for the life you're building, whether you're aware of it or not. Language isn't just a tool for communication, it's a tool for creation. When you speak, particularly with emotion and repetition, you impress those words upon your subconscious, and your subconscious mind, obedient and relentless, begins to align your thoughts, habits, and actions to match those repeated declarations. This is not wishful thinking. This is the very mechanism through which belief is formed and results are generated. Most people go through life unconscious of the dialogue they have with themselves. They say things like, "I'm just not good with money," or "I always screw things up," or "people like me don't succeed," and they repeat these phrases day after day, year after year, until they harden into identity. These words seem harmless at first. They may even feel like facts, but they are in truth self-issued commands. The subconscious hears these statements not as expressions of opinion, but as instructions. Understood, you're not good with money, you always screw up, you don't succeed. I will now filter the world and your behavior to make that true. Your subconscious doesn't evaluate whether something is good or bad, true or false. It simply takes what it hears consistently and acts accordingly. Now flip that script. Imagine if, for just 3 days, you began speaking words of power, direction, and truth. Imagine if you said, "I am capable, I am focused, I am becoming exactly who I choose to be," and you said it not with doubt, not with hesitation, but with full authority, like a general commanding his troops. You would be giving your subconscious a new set of orders. Instead of operating on outdated beliefs shaped by fear, failure, or someone else's opinion, you begin operating from a place of intention. Words spoken with belief create mental images. They spark emotion, and emotion is the key ingredient for making those words stick. Say it once and it's a spark. Say it again and again, with feeling, and you've got a fire, and fire changes things. It clears out the clutter, burns away the lies, and makes room for new growth. Some might scoff at the idea of affirmations. They say, "It's just talk." But here's the truth. Every great transformation begins with just talk. Every movement, every invention, every comeback started with a thought spoken into belief. Words are seeds, and like any seed, they need to be planted, watered, and cared for. You don't speak once and expect a forest. You speak consistently. You speak with faith. You speak knowing that something invisible is taking shape beneath the surface. In this way, your words become your reality. They are the foundation of your self-image, and your self-image governs everything. How you treat yourself, how you treat others, what you pursue, and what you allow. If your self-talk is disempowering, your actions will follow suit. You'll self-sabotage, you'll settle, you'll avoid risks that could elevate you. But when your self-talk becomes empowering, everything changes. You start to notice opportunities you used to overlook. You begin to act in ways that are congruent with your new identity. You lift your head higher. You carry yourself differently, not because someone else told you to, but because you told yourself to. And here's where it gets really powerful. The world responds to how you see yourself. If you walk into a room believing you belong, people will feel that. If you approach a challenge believing you're capable, you'll rise to meet it. That confidence comes not from ego, but from repetition, from speaking the truth to yourself until it becomes the only truth you know. So yes, words matter. Words shape thought. Thought shapes behavior. Behavior shapes outcomes, and outcomes over time shape your life. That's why this 3-day challenge isn't just a motivational gimmick. It's a small act of personal revolution. It's you reclaiming your voice, rewriting your mental script, and installing a belief system that finally works for you instead of against you. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't need the perfect plan. All you need is a new declaration, a powerful one, and the courage to say it consistently. Speak it in the mirror, speak it while you walk, speak it when you feel doubt creeping in, and watch what happens. Watch the shift begin, because when you change your words, you change your world. Before any great achievement is born, belief must take root. Belief is the seed from which all success grows, and without it, no goal, no matter how clearly defined or passionately pursued, can truly come to life. It's not enough to want something. It's not enough to dream about a better future. You must believe in your ability to create it, to deserve it, and to sustain it. That belief is the engine that powers every decision, every risk, and every action. Without belief, hesitation takes over, fear creeps in, doubt slows the stride, but with belief, even the impossible begins to look negotiable. Think of belief not as blind optimism, but as the mental soil that allows your efforts to take root. When you repeat a phrase like, "I am capable, I am focused, I am becoming exactly who I choose to be," you're not just reciting words, you're programming belief into your subconscious. That repetition, especially when spoken with emotion and intention, becomes a powerful directive. It's you telling yourself not what you hope to be, but who you are becoming. The power of this kind of belief lies in its ability to override past programming. Most people don't operate based on who they want to be. They operate based on outdated versions of themselves, versions shaped by failure, criticism, fear, or limitations handed down from others. Somewhere along the line, they were told they weren't smart enough, strong enough, talented enough. And instead of challenging that idea, they absorbed it, they accepted it, it became their truth, not because it was real, but because it was repeated. Now here's the key: belief works the same way. If you feed yourself the right narrative over and over, your mind begins to accept it as reality. At first, it might feel awkward. It might feel like you're lying to yourself. That's normal. You've spent years, maybe decades, saying the opposite. You've told yourself stories about why you can't, why you won't, why it's too late or too difficult. But if you're brave enough to keep speaking new words, empowering words, your subconscious will eventually listen, and when it does, your behavior begins to change in subtle but powerful ways. You'll start to notice opportunities that once seemed invisible. You'll take risks you used to avoid. You'll begin to act like the person you're becoming, rather than the person you've been. This is the invisible shift that happens when belief precedes achievement. The results don't show up immediately, but they start forming in the background, through your energy, your focus, your willingness to persist. Belief is what separates people who merely wish from those who achieve. Wishing is passive, it's emotional without commitment, but belief is the fuel of action. It says, I may not know how yet, but I know it's possible. I know I can learn. I know I can improve. I know I can become. And that mindset draws in the very things you need to grow. It attracts the right people, the right timing, the right ideas, because belief sharpens your senses. It tunes your mind like a radar to pick up signals aligned with your goal, and let's be clear, belief isn't pretending everything is perfect. It's not denying difficulty, it's about choosing your identity in the face of challenge. When you say, I am becoming exactly who I choose to be, you acknowledge that you're in process. You don't need to have arrived. You don't need perfection. What you need is a direction. That phrase becomes your North Star, your personal anthem. It reminds you that you are in control, not of every event, but of your response, your perspective, and your belief in what comes next. And when belief takes hold, action becomes easier. You don't have to push so hard against resistance, because you're no longer battling yourself. You're no longer trying to climb a mountain with a voice in your head telling you you'll never make it. Instead, you're aligned, you're moving with the wind of your own belief at your back, and that's when progress accelerates, that's when confidence compounds. Each step forward reinforces the belief that you can keep going. It's a self-fulfilling cycle of growth. Some people wait for results to believe, but those who truly change their lives do the opposite. They believe first, and the results follow. They speak the words before they see the evidence. They decide who they are becoming, and then they act like it, even when it feels uncomfortable. That's how transformation begins, not with proof, but with faith. So for 3 days, repeat this truth to yourself with every ounce of strength you've got. I am capable, I am focused, I am becoming exactly who I choose to be. Say it when you wake up, say it before you sleep. Say it until you believe it, because belief always comes before achievement. And the moment you decide to believe, you begin to unlock a future that was waiting for you all along. Change rarely comes from a single moment. It doesn't happen because of a spark of motivation that flares up and fades. Real, lasting change is born from consistency, from the daily repetition of small actions that compound over time into powerful results. This is where most people get it wrong. They expect to feel different after one affirmation, one workout, one act of discipline. When nothing feels instantly transformed, they assume it didn't work, and they quit. But the truth is, consistency is the force that builds momentum, and momentum is what makes transformation inevitable. When you repeat something every day, even something as simple as a phrase, it begins to etch itself into your mind. At first, it may feel hollow, robotic, or even silly. You might say, I am capable, I am focused, I am becoming exactly who I choose to be, and think to yourself, I don't feel any different. That's because the first few repetitions are just the planting of a seed. You don't plant a seed and expect fruit the same day. You water it, you expose it to light, you keep showing up, and then, quietly, growth begins. The same is true with your thoughts. On day 1, it's just a whisper. On day 2, it starts to settle into your body. By day 3, your inner voice begins to sound less like doubt and more like determination. That's not magic, that's momentum. It's the result of directing your focus and energy with intention, even when it feels like nothing is changing. Consistency is powerful because it creates familiarity, and your brain is wired to move toward what's familiar, even if it's painful. That's why many people stay stuck in negative patterns. They're used to thinking, I'm not enough, or I never finish anything, or I'm just unlucky. Those thoughts become familiar, and familiarity feels safe, even when it hurts. But when you consistently repeat new, empowering beliefs, you begin to rewire what your mind sees as normal. And once your mind gets used to a new normal, it starts working in the background to support it. Think of it like training a muscle. You wouldn't expect to get strong after doing a single rep at the gym. You get strong by showing up consistently, by putting in the reps even on the days you don't feel like it. The same rule applies to your mindset. Every time you speak that affirmation, you're doing mental reps. You're training your focus, strengthening your belief, conditioning your identity. And just like in the gym, the early reps don't look impressive, but they're building the foundation for something powerful. The most successful people in any field aren't always the most talented, they're the most consistent. They show up on the hard days, they do the work when no one is watching, they speak the truth they want to live into, even when they don't feel it yet. Why? Because they understand that discipline creates freedom, that what you do consistently becomes who you are. Let's take a moment to be real. You've probably started things in the past and didn't follow through. We all have. That's not a sign that you're incapable. It's a sign that your consistency muscle needs training, and this 3-day affirmation challenge is part of that training. It's not just about saying the words, it's about keeping a promise to yourself. That's how self-trust is built. Every time you show up for yourself, you send a message to your subconscious that says, I can count on me, and that message, that's everything. That's the difference between people who dream and people who become. When you commit to repeating something for 3 days, you create a short-term container that makes the goal manageable. It lowers the barrier to entry. You're not committing to a lifetime, you're committing to a moment. But here's the beauty of it. Those 3 days can spark a rhythm. They can create a shift that makes you want to keep going. because when you start to feel different, even just a little, you realize the power you've had all along. Momentum doesn't need to be fast. It just needs to be forward, and once it starts rolling, it becomes easier to maintain. Think of a snowball rolling down a hill. It starts small, slow, almost insignificant. But with every roll, it gathers more weight, more speed, more force. That's what your consistency can do. That's what 3 days of repeated, intentional affirmations can begin to build, even if you've failed before. Even if you don't fully believe it yet, just start. Speak the words, I am capable, I am focused, I am becoming exactly who I choose to be. Say them when you wake up. Say them while brushing your teeth. Say them before bed. Say them when you're tired, frustrated, or uncertain. Say them until your brain stops questioning them, because eventually it will. Eventually, those words won't just be something you say. They'll be something you are. 3 days of repetition can be the crack that lets the light in, the beginning of new momentum, the start of a new story, one written by consistency, shaped by belief, and powered by your decision to show up again and again. You don't need to feel ready, you don't need permission, all you need is a small spark of willingness, and the courage to keep it lit. The shift is coming, keep going. Change begins with a decision, not a wish, not a hope, not a vague intention, but a clear, bold, unshakable decision. The moment you decide who you are becoming, the game changes, your energy shifts, your focus sharpens, your actions align. That's the real power behind transformation. People often wait for something external to push them, a sign, a moment of inspiration, a breakthrough opportunity. But those who truly move forward in life understand something deeper. The most powerful force in the world is personal decision. There's a difference between wanting and deciding. Wanting is passive. It's emotional. It depends on conditions. It says, I'd like this to happen, if everything goes right. But decision is final. It says, this is happening. I'm not waiting. I'm not negotiating. I'm not hoping. I'm moving. That's the kind of energy that reshapes your reality. When you say to yourself, I am becoming exactly who I choose to be, you are making a declaration, not just about your identity, but about your power. You are stepping out of the role of the victim and into the role of the creator. You're no longer reacting to life, you're directing it, and that shift in perspective is the beginning of every breakthrough. Because once you claim responsibility for who you're becoming, you take back control over your mind, your emotions, and your behavior. The truth is, every day you are deciding something, whether you realize it or not. You're deciding what thoughts to entertain, what beliefs to hold, what stories to repeat. Most of these decisions are unconscious. They've been shaped by your past, by society, by the people you've listened to. But here's the good news, you can interrupt that cycle at any moment. You can override old programming with a new, deliberate choice. It starts with one simple act, decide to decide. This is where your words come into play. They become the instrument of your decision. When you say, I am capable, I am focused, I am becoming exactly who I choose to be, you're not just speaking, you're activating a new mental command. You're locking in on a future version of yourself and claiming it as real, even if you don't feel like it yet, even if the world hasn't caught up yet. That's not what matters. What matters is the commitment. The inner stance, the choice. Making a decision doesn't eliminate doubt or difficulty, but it does eliminate hesitation. Once you've made a firm decision, you stop negotiating with fear, you stop seeking validation. You stop delaying, you act, and that action begins to create momentum. That momentum begins to build confidence. That confidence reinforces your identity, and that identity drives you toward your goal with even more force. Most people live in limbo. They haven't really decided who they are. They haven't really chosen what they want. They bounce between options, waiting for the perfect moment, but the perfect moment never comes, not because it doesn't exist, but because it's created by the very act of deciding. The moment you make a choice and back it with action, you create the clarity you were waiting for. You generate the confidence you thought you needed first. Decision is not just about knowing what you want. It's about choosing who you will no longer be. It's about drawing a line in the sand and saying, this version of me, the one who doubts, delays, hides, plays small, done. From this moment forward I move differently, I think differently, I speak differently, because I have decided who I am becoming. That kind of decision creates a ripple effect across your entire life. It impacts how you show up at work, in relationships, in challenges, in your goals. It's not about perfection, it's about direction. When you decide who you're becoming, even your failures have purpose. Your mistakes become lessons. Your setbacks become setups, because everything is now in service of your decision. You're no longer tossed around by emotion or circumstance. You're anchored in identity. This is what separates the few who transform their lives from the many who only talk about it. It's not luck, it's not genius, it's not even motivation, it's decision, and once you decide, truly decide, the universe begins to respond. You start to attract the people, resources, and opportunities that match your new identity, not because they weren't there before, but because you finally tuned your focus to see them. So, don't wait for permission. Don't wait for things to feel perfect. Don't wait for someone else to validate your path. Say the words, say them with fire, say them with clarity. I am capable, I am focused, I am becoming exactly who I choose to be. And then act as if they are true, because with every step you take, you are making them true. You are not here to drift. You are here to decide, and when you do, you'll feel the shift. Not because the world has changed, but because you have. And that changes everything.